70 years ago, the United States, under the leadership of President Harry Truman, dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and 3 days later, Nagasaki. Hundreds of thousands of lives were obliterated in the bombings deemed necessary to ending World War II. A Pew Research survey has found that U.S. support for the bombings has dropped from 85% in the immediate aftermath to 63% in 1991 to 56% today. On the 70th anniversary of the only times in human history that a nation has used nuclear weapons on another nation, we turn today to Dr. Jimmy Hara. He is the Vice President of Physicians for Social Responsibility, Los Angeles. He served on the PSR-LA Board of Directors since 1981, including as chapter president for 15 years. He has been active with the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War, and he's a clinical professor of family medicine at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA and residency director emeritus for the Kaiser Permanente Los Angeles Family Medicine Residency. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our show.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. Well, first, before we get into history, I was a little surprised by those poll results that I cited. Certainly not surprised by the fact that there was 85% support in the immediate aftermath in the American public. But I thought that 70 years later, fewer than 56% of Americans would be supporting. The fact that all these years later, more than half of all Americans think that what we did 70 years ago was the right thing to do is a little bit shocking to me. Does it shock you?
I guess not really, because that's the reason I'm still speaking out and trying to inform the public about what nuclear weapons actually represent, the threat of actually destruction of our planet as we know it.
Why do you think there is still so much support? Is there a sort of this continued belief that the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were necessary to ending World War II, and thus it was worth sacrificing hundreds of thousands of people?
And I might remind you that hundreds of thousands of people we're talking about were civilians, women, children, and the elderly, not the military, because the military were deployed at that point in time.
And so, this justification that is upheld till today, whenever there is criticism of what happened 70 years ago, the reaction is, well, it was necessary to ending World War II. How do you respond to that?
Well, I just remind people that if ever another nuclear weapon is deployed on this planet, the threat is that we could lead to things like famine. There have been studies done more recently by the International Physicians for Prevention of Nuclear War that just a limited exchange of weaponry by, let's say, Pakistan and India, for example.
Which are both nuclear powers.
They are both nuclear powers. Their arsenals are not very large compared to Russia and the U.S., but on the other hand, just a limited exchange between those two countries could end up causing what we call a nuclear winter because of the soot and ash and radioactive fallout that would occur in that area that could lead to starvation and death, what we call a nuclear famine, over most of China primarily, because China is right in that area. And then we're talking about 2 billion people losing their lives over that decade.